Michael Jordan's rental SUV idled outside Emsley A. Laney High School, the afternoon sun catching in the windshield. He didn't tell anyone he was coming. No press, no entourage. Just him and the memories, pulling him back like gravity. He stepped out slowly, hand resting on the door, as he looked at the familiar brick building that once housed every insecurity he ever outgrew. The main entrance had a new awning, a security camera, a fresh coat of blue paint over the old locker's butt. The air still smelled the same: wax, metal, adolescence. Inside, the hallway stretched out like a time tunnel. Kids passed, barely noticing him, earbuds in, laughter echoing down the linoleum floor. Michael adjusted the brim of his cap lower, not out of disguise, but reverence. This place had broken him once. It had also built him. He passed the trophy case. His jersey was still there, framed. A plaque with his NBA records. A pair of old shoes. He moved past it quickly. He wasn't here for that. His steps slowed as he turned the corner toward the gym. It was muscle memory. Half his soul still lived on that hardwood. The gym door creaked open, and there it was. Same light streaming through the upper windows, same bleacher smell, same echo of bounce and breath and drive. On the far side, a few kids shot hoops lazily, taking half-hearted jumpers. But that wasn't what stopped him. That wasn't what sent his chest caving inward like a deflated ball. Near the far bleachers, pushing a mop with slow, deliberate care, was Mr. Wilson. His back was more hunched than Michael remembered, his arms thinner, but the movement was unmistakable. That careful rhythm, that pride in the task, even now. He was still mopping the court, still working, still invisible. Michael didn't move for a moment, didn't breathe. 91. The old man had to be 91 now, and he was still mopping the gym floor, still serving. Michael walked toward him slowly, the sound of sneakers against wood pulling Mr. Wilson's attention just slightly. The janitor didn't recognize him at first. Why would he? Who expects ghosts to walk through double doors in daylight? Michael hesitated, then said softly, "Sir, I used to play here. Class of '81. Mr. Wilson straightened, squinting, eyebrows furrowed. "You don't say. That was a long time ago." "It was," Michael nodded. "A lot's changed. Some things haven't," Mr. Wilson said, then smiled thinly. "These floors still get dirty." He turned back to his mop. Michael's voice caught. "You still working here?" "Every weekday since '76, the janitor replied. "Can't seem to shake the place," he chuckled. But Michael didn't. He looked at the old man, really looked. The hands that used to unlock the gym for him at 5:30 a.m. The same shoulders that never shrugged when he asked for just 5 more minutes. He should have been in a rocking chair. He should have been in a garden. Instead, he was pushing a mop in silence. And Michael Jordan's heart began to burn. Something inside him cracked open. This wasn't just a visit anymore. Michael returned the next afternoon with a brown paper bag in one hand and a folded Bulls jersey under his arm. He had scribbled a note across the number 23 in black Sharpie, "To the man who never let the doors stay locked. Thank you." The halls were emptier than yesterday. After-school programs winding down, sunlight bending through the windows like it had a memory of its own. He found Mr. Wilson just outside the gym, refilling the mop bucket. The old man smiled when he saw him, though his eyes looked a little more sunken than before. "Back again already?" "I owed someone lunch," Michael said, holding up the bag. "Figured it was time I repaid a 40-year-old debt." They sat in the bleachers, just a few rows up, overlooking the polished court. Mr. Wilson unwrapped the sandwich carefully, as if it were something delicate. Ham and cheese. Michael's mom used to make it just like that, back when a game day meant everything. They talked quietly, reminiscing, trading stories like old war buddies. But Michael noticed the old man's hands shaking slightly, his breaths shortening between sentences. His skin had a grayness to it that hadn't been there the day before. "You all right?" Michael asked. Mr. Wilson nodded quickly, too quickly. "Just a little tired, that's all. Long week." Then it happened. Mid-sentence, without warning, Mr. Wilson's eyes rolled back, and he slumped forward, the sandwich falling from his lap. Michael caught him before his head hit the seat. "Hey, hey!" Michael shouted, panic rising in his throat like fire. He lowered the old man gently to the floor and checked his pulse. Shallow, weak. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. "Laney High School, GIM emergency. He's not responding. He's breathing, but barely." Staff rushed in when they heard the shouting. Someone ran to get the school nurse. The minutes dragged like hours. Michael never let go of Mr. Wilson's hand. "Stay with me," he whispered. "You don't get to leave like this." When the EMTs burst in, Michael backed off just enough to let them work. He stood there frozen as they hooked up monitors and oxygen. 91? One of them repeated. "Still working full-time? You're kidding." In the ambulance, Michael rode in silence beside him, clutching the signed jersey like it was a child's blanket. At the hospital, while doctors worked, Michael sat in a waiting chair that felt too small for someone his size. A young woman arrived an hour later. She looked about 20, thin frame, nervous eyes. "You're Michael Jordan," she said, dazed. "You must be Mr. Wilson's granddaughter?" She nodded. "I'm Tasha. I try to help him, but I don't make much. He refuses to quit, says the pension's not enough, and he's too proud to ask anyone for anything." Michael closed his eyes. The nurse returned moments later with an update. Dehydration, critically low blood pressure, malnourishment. He could have died. He still might. Michael stared down at the jersey in his hands. This wasn't about nostalgia anymore. This was life and death. Michael offered to drive Mr. Wilson home the next evening, and the old man didn't argue. The hospital had cleared him to leave, but only with strict instructions: no exertion, full rest, and someone to check on him daily. Tasha had classes and 2 part-time jobs, and the nurses all knew it. Michael had insisted, and now they were cruising through the fading daylight. The SUV quiet, except for the hum of the tires. Mr. Wilson stared out the window, a little embarrassed, a little grateful. "This is really too much," he muttered. Michael shook his head. "After everything you did for me, this is the least I can do." They pulled into a small neighborhood on the outskirts of Wilmington. It was the kind of street where time moved slow and repairs came slower. The houses were close together, porches sagging under years of weather and weight. Mr. Wilson's place sat near the end of the street. Faded green paint peeled off in strips. The railing was bent inward, held up with what looked like an old broomstick. Michael parked at the curb and stared for a second too long. "You sure this is it?" he asked gently. Mr. Wilson chuckled, slow and tired. "Has been for 58 years. Michael helped him up the steps, careful with every movement. Inside, the smell hit him first. Not filth, not rot, just wear, dust, old paper, forgotten time. The floor creaked with every step. The lights where two of them flickered when switched on. The living room was small and packed with memories. Dozens of framed photos filled every surface: kids, grandkids, Martha before the stroke, and, scattered between them, Michael. Teenage Michael. College Michael. Rookie Michael in a Bulls jersey. Mid-air, mid-dream. "I didn't know you kept all these," he said, barely above a whisper. Mr. Wilson shrugged, easing himself into a sunken recliner with a groan. "Got a lot of free space on the walls. Figured I'd use it." Michael wandered slowly through the house. The kitchen sink leaned to one side, propped up with stacked textbooks. The stove was unplugged, and a single hot plate sat on the counter. One of the windows had been sealed with duct tape and cardboard. In the hallway, a space heater buzzed near the floor, its cord stretching through 2 rooms. "The heat went last winter," Mr. Wilson called from the other room. "I make do. Bundle up." The bedroom was the hardest part. A plastic tarp covered a corner where the ceiling had caved in. The bed was stripped down to a mattress with no frame. The closet door hung on one hinge. Michael felt something tighten in his chest, something cold and angry and ashamed. He stepped outside, said something vague about needing to make a quick call, then ducked into the yard and pulled out his phone. "I need a team," he said quietly. "A real one. Wilmington-based. No press, no cameras, no logos. I don't want my name anywhere near it. This isn't a project. It's a rescue mission." Michael paced the length of his hotel room like it was a locker room before Game 7. The phone pressed to his ear buzzed with hold music, and the notepad on the desk was already half filled with names, numbers, scribbled deadlines. He had 48 hours before Mr. Wilson was discharged. 1 week of medical leave, 7 days to erase decades of erosion. At 11:03 p.m., the first piece clicked into place. Dave Thompson, a local contractor who came highly recommended and didn't ask questions. Michael explained the basics. Elderly man, house in disrepair, total transformation needed. Timeline, 7 days. Dave laughed at first, the kind of chuckle that says impossible. Then Michael said his name again. Not for ego, for leverage. It's Michael Jordan, and I'm not asking for favors. I'm asking if you want to build something that matters. The line went silent. I'm in, Dave finally said. But I need full access and zero interference. You'll have both, but you work in silence. This doesn't go public. By midnight, Michael was deep into calls with a lawyer in Charlotte, someone who specialized in non-disclosure agreements and quiet trusts. No branding, no announcements, no donations, Michael said. Just rebuild the house and secure their lives. He booked a conference room at the Marriott under a fake name. No assistants. No entourage. Just blueprints, contracts, and a vision. At 2:27 a.m., Scotty called back. You're not sleeping either, huh? Michael let out a breath. Didn't think I could. Tell me what you need. By sunrise, the plan had shape. 3 shifts working around the clock. A full gutting and rebuild structural work. Electrical, plumbing, accessibility design. A hospice nurse would visit the site and advise on the medical needs, down to the dimensions of the wheelchair ramp and the roll-in shower. Michael's old business manager joined the calls by 7 a.m., piecing together the financial puzzle. We can make the house livable in a week, she said. But what happens after that? We don't stop there, Michael replied. He retires. Full pension, whether the state gives it or not. We pay off the mortgage. We set up a trust. His granddaughter gets a scholarship. His wife gets care. Everything. She paused. You realize this is going to cost. I'm not asking, Michael interrupted. I'm telling you to make it happen. By mid-morning, the blueprint was more than metaphor. A physical draft sat on the table, flanked by coffee-stained notes and phone chargers. The project had a name now, scribbled in all caps across the top page. Operation Homecoming. The only thing missing was permission. That afternoon, Michael called Principal Jenkins at Laney High and asked for 5 minutes of his time. He got 20. When Michael explained the plan, the principal's voice cracked. It's long overdue, he said. Take the week. I'll make sure the paperwork says maintenance leave. Michael hung up and stared out the window. 7 days. No cameras. No credit. Just gratitude. Paid forward with a hammer, a blueprint, and a promise. The morning air was thick with sawdust before the sun had fully risen. Trucks lined the street outside Mr. Wilson's house like it was a military operation. Crew after crew poured out, carrying tool belts, ladders, crowbars, and coffee. Michael stood at the curb, clipboard in one hand, sleeves rolled, eyes scanning the property like a general surveying the battlefield. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours, but his focus was razor sharp. Dave barked orders like a man possessed, but everything moved with purpose. Inside, every piece of furniture was carefully photographed, logged, and either moved into a storage pod or marked for replacement. Nothing was thrown away unless Michael personally approved it. This recliner goes, he said, pointing at the collapsed armchair in the corner of the living room. Get a new one, but don't toss this. He held up a frayed quilt folded over the back. It's been with them a long time. In the kitchen, cabinets were unscrewed from the walls, each one splintering like old bones. The sink groaned as 2 workers lifted it from its moorings. The floor underneath was warped and blackened. How long has it been leaking? Michael asked. No one knew. In the hallway, Michael joined a demolition crew tearing out drywall. He didn't just watch, grabbed a sledgehammer, pulled gloves over his hands, and started swinging. With each blow, a layer of history peeled away. Plaster dust stuck to his arms, sweat soaked through his shirt, but he didn't stop. Not even when his palm blistered, not even when it bled. By noon, volunteers had started to arrive. a retired teacher from Laney, a former football player now working as a mechanic, two women who said Mr. Wilson had quietly paid their lunch dues in high school when they couldn't afford it. Each of them came with a memory and a reason to help. "He was the only adult who looked me in the eye," one said, pushing a wheelbarrow. "Made me believe I was worth something," another added, handing out bottled water. The backyard became a staging ground. Raised garden beds were marked off with neon string. A landscaping team began pruning trees and leveling the cracked stone path. Inside, the bathroom was reduced to studs, wires hanging like veins, the moldy walls stripped bare. A health specialist pointed out where the roll-in shower would go, where the handrails needed to be mounted, how much clearance Martha's chair would need. Every detail mattered. Michael checked every measurement himself. He didn't ask for breaks. He barely spoke. This wasn't charity. It was restitution. It was personal. That evening, as floodlights replaced the sun, Michael stepped back into the kitchen, wiping blood from his knuckles with a rag. The walls were gone. The roof groaned with age, exposed like a ribcage. The house looked broken, but he didn't see ruin. He saw foundation. He saw future. He saw the beginning of something that had been overdue for 47 years. Michael stepped through the hospital doors with a ball cap low over his brow and a folder tucked under his arm. It was late, nearly 8 p.m., long after most visitors had gone home. The nurse at the front desk did a double take, but he raised a finger to his lips. She nodded, pressing a button to buzz him through. He walked the quiet hallway with measured steps, passing white walls, soft beeps, the faint smell of antiseptic and age. Room 212. He paused outside, collecting himself, then knocked twice. "It's open," came the tired voice. Michael entered, and Mr. Wilson turned his head slowly from the window. "Didn't expect to see you again. I owed you more than just a sandwich," Michael said, easing into the chair by the bed. "Brought you something." He handed over the folder. Inside were early sketches of the renovation, crude yet precise accessible ramps, roll-in shower, new flooring, widened doorways. Mr. Wilson didn't even open it. He just set it aside and looked out the window again. "Why are you doing all this?" he asked. "You got your own life. You're a legend. You don't need to waste your time on an old janitor." Michael exhaled. "You weren't just a janitor to me. Don't pity me, Mr. Wilson said, his voice suddenly sharp. "I worked my whole life, never asked for help. I don't want your charity." "It's not charity," Michael replied quietly. "It's a thank you, and it's overdue." The room went still. Machines beeped. A clock ticked. Outside, the wind brushed faintly against the glass. Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and his voice dropped. "You remember when I got cut from varsity? I came in early the next day, trying to pretend it didn't bother me. I stayed after school, too. You never said much, just handed me a broom and let me shoot while you cleaned." "I remember," Mr. Wilson said, softer now. "You said nothing, but you stayed. Every day. You saw something in me when no one else did." Michael blinked hard. "I'm not here out of guilt. I'm here because you deserve a life that doesn't end with a mop in your hands at 91. Mr. Wilson didn't speak. He reached for the folder again, this time opening it slowly, studying the pages like blueprints to a future he'd long stopped imagining. Meanwhile, across town, the first crack threatened the operation. An email had leaked. A local reporter contacted Michael's agent, asking about a mysterious rebuild at the Wilson residence. Photos were being circulated. Michael's phone lit up with the alert, and he called back immediately. "Shut it down," he said, voice flat. "If a single photo runs, I walk. No press. Not one camera. This isn't a story. It's a promise." Back in room 212, Mr. Wilson finally looked at Michael and whispered, "You sure you're not just doing this to feel better about yourself?" Michael smiled, but there was pain behind it. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I know this: no one should work themselves into the ground just to be forgotten. Not on my watch." The first crack of thunder rattled the tools on the makeshift workbench, just as the last worker was packing up his gear. The sky over Wilmington had turned black in a matter of minutes. the clouds folding into themselves like fists. Dave checked the forecast again and swore under his breath. "We've got no tarp on the roof. If this hits hard, everything inside is going to flood." Michael stood at the edge of the porch, sleeves rolled, staring up at the shifting sky like it had just insulted him. "What happens if we leave it? Drywall's soaked, electrical shot, might lose 2 full days." Michael didn't answer right away. Then he pulled his cap tighter and turned. "Get the tarp." Dave hesitated. "The crew's already headed out. They'll never make it back in time." Michael looked him in the eye. "Then we do it ourselves." An hour later, water was pouring from the gutters and drumming on the exposed plywood where the roof used to be. Sheets of rain whipped sideways. The yard had turned to sludge. But there they were, Michael, Scotty, Steve Kerr, and Dennis Rodman hauling a massive blue tarp across the skeleton of the house, every gust of wind fighting to rip it out of their hands. Scotty grunted as he secured the first corner. "Remind me again why we didn't just call FEMA?" "Because FEMA doesn't owe this man a future," Michael snapped, holding the tarp with both fists, his shirt plastered to his skin. Dennis tied down the second corner, slipping once, nearly tumbling from the ladder. He caught himself with a grunt. "Man's got me out here like it's the playoffs and we're down 10 in the fourth." Michael didn't laugh. He didn't even look up. The third corner gave them hell. The wind wouldn't stop. The rain felt personal now, like the world was trying to wash away the progress they'd made. But Michael didn't let go. His knuckles turned white, his jaw clenched so hard he could feel it in his ears. He had faced buzzer beaters, Game 7s, flu games. But this was different. This was for someone who had never once asked for applause. Dave finally got the last tie secured, the tarp held. Not pretty, not perfect, but enough to keep the heart of the house dry. At 4:12 a.m., they all sat in the garage on overturned paint buckets, soaked through, shoes squishing with every movement. Steam rose from their bodies like ghosts leaving flesh. No one spoke for a long while. Then Scotty nudged Michael. "You ever think we'd be patching roofs instead of breaking ankles?" Michael wiped his face with his sleeve. "I've never felt more useful." The rain kept falling, quieter now. Inside the house, the walls were safe. The beams were dry, the mission still alive. Michael leaned his head back against the wall, eyes closed, breath shallow. He wasn't tired. He was emptied out. But it was the kind of exhaustion that came with meaning. The kind that told you this was worth it. The house was almost silent now. No drills, no saws, no hammering. Just the soft thud of Michael's sneakers on brand new hardwood as he moved room to room, alone. The transformation was nearly complete. The drywall had dried, the final coat of paint sealed in a warm cream hue that caught the morning light just right. Cabinets gleamed. Baseboards sat snug against fresh tile. The bathroom, now a model of accessibility, was outfitted with brushed steel rails and a shower seat molded into the tile, like it belonged there all along. He paused in the hallway, running his hand along the smooth wall. It used to be barely wide enough for Martha's wheelchair to scrape through. Now it was open, welcoming. He turned into what used to be a storage room now, a therapy space, filled with low-impact equipment, soft floor mats, and a lift system that hung from the ceiling like quiet dignity. A folded towel and a pair of Martha's favorite socks were already placed beside the new recumbent bike. Someone on the team remembered her, saying she missed the feeling of pedaling. Michael didn't ask who. He walked into the bedroom next. The adjustable bed had been made with care, fresh linen tucked with military precision. A quilt, a real one, not store-bought, handmade with small initials stitched into one corner lay at the foot. Their initials, JM plus MW, 1965. The walls held framed photos from the Wilsons' lives, not the glossy posed ones, but real memories. Martha holding their son after birth, Mr. Wilson with grease on his face fixing a bike, a blurry snapshot of them dancing in their kitchen barefoot, both laughing so hard it looked like they might fall over. In the living room, a custom display case held Mr. Wilson's old scrapbook, now restored and lit by recessed LEDs. The newspaper clippings were preserved behind museum-quality glass, each article labeled and dated, some with a handwritten note explaining the context. This one was from when Mike scored 36. He'd shot 300 free throws the night before. Told me he'd miss one on purpose just to test his luck. He didn't. Michael smiled. It felt like something sacred was locked in that glass. But it wasn't just the renovations that moved him. It was what they didn't build, what simply appeared. A paper flower taped to the front window with, "Thank you, Mr. Wilson," written in red crayon. A dozen handwritten cards stuffed into the mailbox. Some from kids, others from adults who had once been those kids. One envelope had no return address, just a note inside that read, "You stopped me from quitting on myself in '94. You didn't know, but I do. Thank you." Michael folded the note and held it in both hands like it was something holy. He sat on the new porch swing, watching the last coat of paint dry on the mailbox. This wasn't about debt. It wasn't about charity. It was about seeing someone's worthwhile. They were still here to feel it, and making damn sure they never forgot it. The van rolled to a stop at the curb just past noon, the engine ticking as it cooled. Mr. Wilson sat quietly in the borrowed wheelchair, hands folded neatly in his lap, eyes scanning the street without suspicion. He'd been told this was a routine check-in, some follow-up from the hospital about equipment delivery. He hadn't asked questions. He never did. Beside him, Martha adjusted the brim of her sun hat and looked around. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "James," she whispered, "where are the neighbors?" Before he could answer, the side door slid open and Scotty appeared with a grin. "We're a little early," he said, motioning toward the sidewalk. "But I promise this won't take long. Mr. Wilson furrowed his brow, confused, but allowed himself to be guided down the ramp. The moment his wheels touched the sidewalk, he looked up, then froze. A long red ribbon stretched across the newly painted porch. Beyond it, standing tall in a crisp black shirt, was Michael Jordan holding a pair of oversized scissors in both hands. The street behind him was quiet but full. Neighbors stood gathered in respectful silence. Students from Laney High clutching hand-drawn signs, old friends holding back tears. No reporters, no news vans. Just people who had waited their whole lives to say thank you. Mr. Wilson blinked, confused. "What is this?" Michael stepped forward, voice steady. "Welcome home, Mr. Wilson." The old man's eyes flickered from face to face, then to the house. The paint was new, a warm blue he hadn't seen in decades. The walkway was wide, smooth, edged with fresh garden beds blooming with marigolds. The porch railing, once bent and rusted, now gleamed white in the sun. I don't understand." "You will," Michael said softly, then handed him the scissors. "You've opened doors for everyone else your whole life. It's time we opened one for you." Mr. Wilson took the scissors with a trembling hand. The crowd silent as he cut the ribbon in one clean motion. As it fell, the front door opened and the smell of cedar and clean air drifted out. Michael rolled his wheelchair forward, and Mr. Wilson followed him across the threshold. Inside, the house was glowing. Light poured through new windows onto polished floors. The living room was open, warm, framed photos placed with precision across every surface. Mr. Wilson's breath hitched when he saw the scrapbook enshrined in a glass case beside the fireplace. "What is all this?" "It's yours," Michael said. "The house, the equipment, everything. Paid in full, no strings." Mr. Wilson's voice broke. "I'm not worth all this." Michael knelt beside him, hand on his shoulder, eyes locked. "You're worth more than I ever was." The old man shook his head, overcome. But behind him, Martha wept openly, her hand pressed to her chest, mouth trembling with gratitude. "How did you?" she whispered. "Why?" "Because he didn't forget," Michael said, eyes never leaving Mr. Wilson's. "And now, neither will anyone else." After the last wave of hugs and handshakes, when the crowd had thinned and the sun had dipped behind the oaks, Michael led Mr. Wilson to the kitchen table, where a thin folder sat waiting. No fanfare, no speeches, just 2 chairs, and a man finally ready to show the last card in his hand. Mr. Wilson eased into the seat, still dazed, hands worn and quiet in his lap. Martha sat beside him, eyes red from happy tears, her hand resting on his arm like an anchor. Michael opened the folder and pushed it forward. "This," he said, "is everything else." Inside was a packet of documents official, stamped, notarized. At the top, a letter in simple, bold print. The James and Martha Wilson Trust. Mr. Wilson looked down, eyes scanning slowly. A paid-off mortgage. A permanent monthly income. Full medical coverage for both of them. Future, expenses, long-term care, therapy, transportational, covered indefinitely. Beside the papers sat another envelope. Inside, a certificate for Tasha. A full scholarship in her grandfather's name, good at any state university in North Carolina. Tuition, housing, books, all of it. "You're never working another day unless you choose to," Michael said. "No bills, no debts, no corners to cut. From now on, the only thing you have to do is rest. And maybe enjoy your mornings a little." Mr. Wilson tried to speak, but nothing came. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the scholarship document, tracing his granddaughter's name printed beneath his. Martha leaned in, reading every line with a reverence that could only come from years of scraping by. "Michael," she whispered, we don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said. 40 years ago, when you showed up, when you kept showing up, when no one was looking, and you showed up anyway." Michael stood and walked to the window, drawing back the curtain. Across the street, the old gym sat in dusk light, golden and solemn. A new plaque had been installed that morning above the doors. The James Wilson Athletic Center. He pointed to it, voice low but clear. "That's yours now, too. So when the next kid shows up early, wondering if anyone believes in them, they'll see your name before they even step on the court." Mr. Wilson didn't say anything. He just stared, his chest rising and falling in slow, uneven beats. After a while, he reached for Michael's hand and held it the way only someone who never asked for anything can like it was sacred. Later that evening, when the lights dimmed and the house was quiet, Michael stood alone in the gym. It still smelled like rubber and hope. He walked to the free throw line, bounced an old ball once, then looked toward the bleachers. Mr. Wilson sat there, watching, his hands folded, a soft smile stretching across his face. Nothing left to mop, nothing left to prove, just a man at peace, in the place where it all began.